We have a responsibility as the Texas delegation to represent the spirit of Texas, which is one that runs to the fight, always fighting for what is right and never giving up. That is the sacred duty, and that is the spirit with which we stand here today and with which we develop this framework by Texans, for Texas, to secure our southern border. And as important as the policies and strategies in this Texas border plan is our pledge to do everything in our power to make them a reality. It's important to note that this framework is consistent and in support of House Republicans' commitment to America, to create a nation that is safe. What's happening at our southern border, this unprecedented humanitarian and security crisis, the record number of people, drugs, crime, and gangs pouring into our communities is a disgrace and completely unacceptable. And with this new Republican majority in the House, our Texas delegation is committed to using every tool and authority at our disposal to hold President Biden, Secretary Mayorkas, and this entire administration accountable for their dereliction of duty, to support our state leaders in their efforts to defend Texas in the face of this clear and imminent danger, and to put the policies in this framework into place that will protect our citizens and secure our sovereign border. This is our commitment to America. This is our plan for Texas. And this is our solemn pledge to our fellow Texans.
We know this border better than anybody. We live it. But I've never seen it this bad. The chaos, the wide open border, bringing in so many fentanyls, 80,000 children have died this year. That's more than the people who died in Vietnam over 2 decades, to put it in perspective. Biggest human trafficking event of my lifetime. It's disgraceful. And it didn't have to happen. It was a self-inflicted wound. On day one, President Biden rescinded Remain in Mexico, a policy that I worked with the Trump administration to stop this crisis at our border. And you know what? The migrant protection protocols worked. And in my role on the Foreign Affairs Committee, I'm going to go down to Mexico and Central America and talk about political asylum agreements, remain in country, because once they get in country, in the United States, it's catch and release. We release them into the streets and we lose them. Almost 5 million. What in the world are we going to do with people, 5 million people that have no legal status in this country?
There are 300,000 young Texans in the sex slave industry in our state. 300,000 young people. Because of this open borders policy, they are in a life that is just a living hell. This is a security crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis. It's a sex trafficking crisis. It is a fentanyl crisis. And no delegation in Congress has more expertise and better solutions to address this border crisis than here in the Texas delegation. And it's because our communities live this and they pay the price. So this border plan is our part of the commitment to America to make our nation safe. This is the Republican commitment from Texas in this new Congress to make America safe and make Texas safe by securing our border.
I would just ask all of you in the media, whatever outlet you're with, these are human beings. These are our fellow Texans, fellow Americans, but also migrants who seek to come to the United States, being exploited for crass political purposes. 53 human beings who cooked in a tractor trailer in San Antonio. Children, little girls, little boys being sold into the sex trafficking trade. In what world is this somehow compassionate? It's not. This is destroying lives. It's destroying American lives. It's empowering cartels. It's empowering China. It's destroying the economies and societies of our neighbors to the south because we're not working together to export the rule of law and have a strong Western Hemisphere rather than importing lawlessness and importing fentanyl that's killing our children and destroying our communities. We've laid out a plan. We're distributing that plan. We have to have infrastructure at the border. And not just the wall, we need the wall, but we need to clear cane. We need to have roads for Border Patrol to be able to move up and down the border and do their job. Have you been along the Rio Grande? Have you gone down? Have you seen what these guys have to deal with every single day to be able to do their job? We need to have physical infrastructure, but we need to enforce the policies of the United States and clean up the policies of the United States. And we've articulated those policies. You cannot encounter and release. You must be able to detain and or turn away in order to stop the flow that is devastating lives. That's how you actually secure a border, is to enforce those policies. You have to enforce the laws in the interior of the United States. And you have to target the cartels that are exploiting our laws and exploiting human beings for profit and endangering the American people in the process.
My hope is for today that you will spread this truth far and wide about the horrors that the Biden administration has created on our southern border. And we all stand here together, unified, because nobody knows just how bad this mess really is, more so than we Texans. We have a plan, the Texas Border Commitment, that we've all come up with. And that will serve as the framework for securing our border, protecting the American people, and preserving American sovereignty.
We all heard this week when Joe Biden almost went to the border. He went to a border state in Arizona, and people asked why he wouldn't visit the border, and he said, well, there's more important things to do. And so we're all left wondering what's more important. Is our sovereignty as a nation not important? Is 80,000 deaths a year from fentanyl crisis not important? Is Raul Gonzalez and his 2 kids not important? And Border Patrol finds themselves asking, why is he even taking these risks? Why does Border Patrol go out day after day after day just to be nannies and bus drivers and babysitters, not able to actually do their jobs because this administration will not enforce the laws that are on the books? We actually do have solutions that I would tell this administration that claims we do not. And they spit in our face. They spit in the face of the American people. They spit in the face of the Border Patrol agents that risk their lives every day by telling us that this is just a political stunt and that none of it matters. We say differently, and we have a very direct and simple plan to stop it. And I hope Democrats will work with us on that. I hope Democrats will recognize that we have a common enemy in the cartels that are flooding and lacing street drugs with fentanyl and poisoning Americans to the tune of nearly 80,000 dead per year.
If you're not willing to define an issue, you're never going to come up with the solutions that are presented here today.
The number one thing we got to fix is a loophole in the law. Well, the loophole here is if you come across the border and you claim you have a credible fear that if you are returned to the country you come from, you qualify for our asylum laws. However, you get first met by a bureaucrat who releases everybody, but you're supposed to go before a judge. And most of those judges turn these people back. But the docket is 5 to 10 years behind. So we have to fix this, and there's no consequence of any nature for committing the fraud of claiming asylum when it's false. My part of the bill, if you have committed this fraud, it would be punishable by a fine or imprisonment for up to 10 years for lying on an application for asylum.
And we're all so stunned with this administration that's just saying, it's not important, we're not going to deal with it. We all have to deal with it. So thank you for being here and listening to what we have to say.
Now this will all worsen when Title 42 ends later this month with as many as 18,000 people a day crossing our border, and probably more. The great state of Texas has done more to secure the border and support our men and women and Border Patrol than President Biden has done in 4 decades of his public service.
As members of Congress from Texas, it is our job and responsibility to represent not just the people and the communities, but also our nation. The story that's being told today is one that the Biden administration and Democrats in Congress have ignored, and that is
the rule of law, and the ability that we have to protect American citizens.
We lost nearly 3,000 Americans in 9/11, and we mobilized as a country and united like never before. And yet, we lost 27 times that just to fentanyl last year, and we have a political party that wants to ignore it. So this plan, as Chip Roy said, is a solution to a grave problem, and it's not a crisis, it's a catastrophe. And it's time this administration and the Democrats woke up.
You're the press. Every time you see this president, you should say, Mr. President, what about the 300 Americans that are dying every day? It's time, Mr. President, to secure the border.
They've turned our good men and women at the Border Patrol doing the best they can to secure our border. They've turned that apparatus into, instead of a security situation, into one that continues to traffic and to help and aid and abet cartels in getting this situation from our border in Texas throughout the country.
President Biden needs to go to the border. He needs to see the tragedy that is happening. He needs to understand the deaths caused by fentanyl. He needs to lead us out of this crisis that he has led us into.
Under the Biden administration, they would prefer to send hundreds of millions of dollars to Central America for their refugee problem instead of sending it to our border for the help that we desperately need down there. I've introduced legislation that would actually handle that and redirect those funds to where it's needed most, at the border. All of these pieces of legislation have gone nowhere because Democrats refuse to bring them out of committee and vote on them. Every single member behind me has either sponsored, co-sponsored, or supported actual solutions, plans, policies, bills that would address the current human crisis, financial crisis, and national security crisis that we had at the border. It's time that Democrats stop talking as if this is a bipartisan issue and actually start voting like it.
As a spouse of a Border Patrol agent, I can tell you that they need our help. I can tell you that there is no better group of people to help resolve the issues than the Texas congressional delegation. The Biden administration has stated that he doesn't care about South Texas, he doesn't care about the border crisis, that there is more important things. He is a disgrace, he should be ashamed of himself and resign. How many more lives do we have to lose? How many more Border Patrol agents do we have to lose? How many more migrants do we have to lose? He's made it harder for migrants to come into the United States legally, but has made it easier for people to come here to this country illegally. The Mexican people also want peace. They don't want this president to continue doing what he's doing. He's hurting them as well. He's hurting the American people. We are sick and tired of it.
And the really bad news is it's fixing to get a lot worse when they eliminate Title 42. But I've also never seen the Texas delegation so united on this issue. So thank you, Jody, for putting this together. Thank you for the work, the body of work that you've done, assembling all the legislative pieces that colleagues from across Texas have put together. We have the plan. If the administration won't solve this, we will.